All right, there, fifth graders. So we're going to be using our fraction multiplication skills, and now we're working with decimals. Because remember, the decimals are a type of fraction. So let's check out our first problem. So write this multiplication expression using unit form and the word of. So we might ask, what is 1/10 of 4? Because when we multiply fractions, we're asking, what is this fraction of something? And since this is 1/10, we're asking, what is 1/10 of 4? So write this as a multiplication sentence, although, I mean, it's already a multiplication sentence right there, 0.1 times 4, but write it with a fraction. So instead of 0.1, we don't read that 0.1, we read it as 1/10. So it's 1/10 times 4. Now you know how to solve that. So 1/10 times 4, well, we could turn that into 1/10 times 4 once, and then we just multiply across. 4, 10, which we know would reduce to 2/5, but that's not going to be super helpful for our next step, because check it out, write our answer as a decimal. Oh, well, this is 4/10, so 4/10. Booyah! So this goes back to some of what we learned at the beginning of the year, because if we started with 4 ones, and we divided, or we multiplied by 1/10, which is the same as dividing by 10, and that got us here to 4/10. So what about 1/100th of 4? Well, we know that 10 scooched us over 1, so we started with 4, so 1/100th is going to be right here. All right, I want you to try and solve these two as fractions and see where you get. Make sure you come see me to check your work. If it's taking longer than a minute or two to solve these guys, then please raise your hand and ask for some help. So here's another way we can show multiplying by fractions. So the number sentence we're looking at is 1/10 times 1/10. So this whole thing is 1 whole. So we're starting with 1/10. So I'm going to shade 1/10 of my whole. And then to multiply, then I'm going to shade 1/10 of my 1/10. That guy right there. So 1/10 times 1/10 is 100th. So as a decimal and as a fraction. Or if we want to start that on a place value chart, we started with 1/10, and then we got down to 100. Just remember, when we multiply by fractions, or when we multiply by anything less than 1, your product is going to be smaller than whatever number you started with. So what's going to happen to a 2 when I multiply it by 1/10? Well, we know it's going to get smaller, because that's what happens when you multiply it by a fraction or any number that's less than 1.
So if we showed on a place value chart, we started with 2/10, then we multiplied by 1/10, which means we get one place value smaller, and now we're at 2/100ths. So check it out this way. We've got 2/10 times 1/10, and we multiply across. 2 times 1 is 2, 10 times 10 is 100, so 2/100ths. All right, for problem 2C, we can show this on a place value chart, or remember we can just move the decimal. So 1.2 times 1/10 is going to give us a smaller number, so we're going to move the decimal over 1, and we'll get 12/100ths. Now, if we wanted to solve this like it's a fraction, how would we express 1.2 as a fraction greater than 1? Well, that's 1 and 2/10. Or if we wanted to use an improper fraction, we could say 12/10. Now go ahead and solve that fraction style. 12 tenths times 1 tenth. Raise your hand when you're ready for me to see it. All right, so we're going to solve one problem several different ways. So we have 1 tenth times 1/100th. So first with fraction multiplication, 1 tenth times 1/100th. 1 times 1 is 1. 10 times 100 is 1,000. We could solve it on a place value chart. We start with 1 tenth. We're multiplying it by 100th. So that means we're scooching it over 2 places. So now we have 1,000th. If we wanted to model it, well, we'd start with 1 tenth over here. And then we'd have to shade 1/100th of our tenth, which would be like down there. Barely anything. So let's take a look at our next problem. 5 tenths times 1/100th. So think about a place value chart. So in writing 5 tenths, where will the digit 5 be? Tenths place. And if we multiply by 1/100th, it gets 2 place values smaller. If it was 1 tenth, it'd be 1, but 1/100th is 2. So in unit form, that answer, since we had 5 tenths, would now be 5 thousandths. Check it out with fraction multiplication. 5 tenths times 1/100th. Multiply across. 5 times 1 is 5. 10 times 100 is 1,000. Now how can we write 5 thousandths as a decimal? Well, we always put the 0 and then the decimal. That's tenths, hundredths, 5 thousandths. So we have 1 5 tenths times 1/100th. So express 1 5 tenths as a fraction greater than 1. Let's see, we have 1 5 tenths, which would be 15 tenths, times 1/100th. So multiply across. 15 times 1 is 15. 10 times 100 is 1,000. So 15 thousandths. Now we're going to write that as a decimal. So that means 15 is a 2-digit number, so the last digit, that 5, is going to be in the thousandths place. So here's our tenths place, hundredths, thousandths.